Hello viewers, good morning and welcome to the first edition of newspaper headlines for the week, coming to you from the Advent Cable Network Nigeria Television, ACNNTV. So many developments took place during the weekend, from the demise of Abuja and concerns mount as COVID-19 cases rise. These and other stories make the headlines this Monday morning. I am Rachel Ibn. We start from the lead story. COVID-19. Anxiety as community transmission hits Federal Capital Territory. Tension in Borno over retired nurse's death. We are awaiting NCDC confirmation. This is coming from state government. Presidency bars Mongono. Shehu. Reporters at Kare's burial from Villa. Bandits kill 47 as Masari locks down Katsina. See the story on pages 5 and 8 and also on page 6. The picture is that of a Pastor Anjuma of the Rema House of Prayer and Answer Ministry, arrested by the Federal Capital Territory COVID-19 Task Force for conducting church service. This happened in Abuja yesterday. Then below the bottom strip story, post-COVID-19, don't be in hurry to travel out. Adeboye warns Nigerians. See the story on page 5. On page 7, abductors place 15 million naira ransom on Delta Anglican priest. That story is on page 7. Cops detained over alleged assault on woman in Osun. See the details on page 14. On page 23, slump in fuel imports by Nigeria. Others threaten European refiners. And on page 14, UCH doctor tests positive to COVID-19. We go beside the masthead. Kick COVID-19 out of Nigeria. Get the Blueprint newspaper and see how you can get rid of COVID-19 in Nigeria. And insurgency, that is below the masthead. 105 killed as troops repel attack on Yobe communities. The story starts from the front page and it continues on page 6. On page 9, loot delivers 48-year-old woman of twins. That is the Lagos State University Teaching Hospital. See the story on page 9. And the last story on Blueprint newspaper, lockdown nudging economy towards recession. This is coming from experts, and you can see the details on page 23. We go to the next paper for a review for the headlines this morning. This day newspaper, I'll take it from the lead story. Concerns mount as COVID-19 cases rise sharply by 86 to 627. It has the kickers: 170 discharged, 21 dead. Private sector coalition to distribute 23 billion naira food to 10 million Nigerians. To unveil strategies to defeat pandemic today. No country can fight COVID-19 alone, says NCDC. Lagos to ramp up testing to 1,000 daily. NMA mobilizes 42 doctors as volunteers. The story starts from the front page and it continues on page 7. And on page 8, Buhari condemns killing of 47 persons in Katsina village. That story is on page 8. And the picture is that of the Governor, Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, Lagos State Commissioner for Health and others during a media briefing after the inspection of the ongoing isolation center project by the private sector-led coalition against COVID-19 at the Infection Disease Hospital, Yaba, Lagos. This happened yesterday. Then below the masthead, dark horses set to upset race for Abuja's job. Pantami, Adamu listed. Lawan, Shomale, governors, NSCIA, IPI, others mourn. The story starts from the front page and it continues on page 9. And above the masthead, reports Investment-led strategy critical for economic recovery. Predicts further depreciation of Naira. Fiscal deficit spiked to 4.3 trillion Naira. The story starts from the front page and it continues on page 9. And the last story on this day newspaper. With new gas supply deal, federal government to sustain peak power generation. Alright, next is New Telegraph newspaper, and I'll take it from the top above the masthead. 10 banks paid 139.3 billion Naira income taxes in 2019. Some of the banks are listed here. We have GT Bank, Zenith Bank, UBA and others. And the story starts from the front page and it continues on page 8. And on that same page, LCCI insists on full deregulation of downstream sector. That story can be found on page 8. Then below the masthead, bandits kill 47 in Katsina communities. See details on page 6. On page 4, PDP seeks suspension of ATM, mobile transfer, electricity charges. On that same page, APC state chair, our members facing hunger pandemic. LUTH, that is Loot, delivers 68-year-old woman of twins. That story can be found on page 6. Then the lead story on New Telegraph newspaper, coronavirus, Buhari orders SGF, ministers, NSA orders to go on isolation. Directs aides, journalists at Carey's barrier to stay off Villa. Shehu, Villa has operated digitally in the last few weeks. 83-year-old woman dies in Lagos. Details can be found on page 3. Alright, the picture is that of some men fumigating the Nigerian Railway Corporation at Ebute Metta against the novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic in Lagos. This happened yesterday. Then below the picture, journey to normalcy has started. This is coming from Adeboye. Urges Nigerians to postpone traveling overseas after lockdown. The story can be found on page 8. Then the bottom strip story, mental illness increases child injury risks. See story on page 25. And we have this breakdown, COVID-19 global cases, 2,395,636. And global recovery, 615,668. Global death, 164,565. Then we have the countries, the breakdown of some of the countries. That's the last story on the New Telegraph newspaper. We go to the Guardian newspaper. We take it from the top, which is the lead story on the paper. Private hospitals impose restriction on all patients. The story starts from the front page and it has this kickers. Says cases will be deemed COVID-19 positive till proved otherwise. Presidency bars reporters from Aso Rock over Abakari. Why Nigeria's leaders lack confidence in public health care. The story starts from the front page and it continues on page 6. How bandits kill 47 in Katsina by police. We recovered over 70 bodies, says residents. Security agents move against evasion. The story starts from the front page and it continues on page 6. On page 3, Carey fosters mutual respect in governance with uncommon dedication, says Lawan. Auto crash kills 10, injures 45 in Zamfara. See that story on page 8. And on page 7, 12 of 14 Lagos COVID-19 deaths occurred in private hospitals. That story is on page 7. And we have this picture. The first is police officers checking motorists at the end of 3rd Mainland Bridge during the COVID-19 lockdown in Lagos. This happened yesterday. And the second picture is that of travelers from Ondo State arrested by the Osun State government between the Osun and Ondo border to check the spread of COVID-19. This happened yesterday. That is it from the Guardian newspaper. Alright, we go to the next paper, which is the Leadership newspaper, and I'll take it from the top. NCDMB cuts interest rates, extends loan on $200 million fund. Story starts from the front page and it continues on page 6. Troops kill 10 terrorists, recover weapons in Yobe. See the details on page 21. And the lead story says more tributes for Abakari as UN governors IBB console President Muhammadu Buhari. Nigeria has lost a great administrator, says Obaseki and Etsunupe. Presidency asks official journalists at Beria to proceed on 14-day isolation. Businessman Julius Ron donates 20 million naira to combat COVID-19 in Delta. PDP seeks suspension of bank electricity charges. Muslims, Christians pray at home in Kano. The story can be found on page 4. Right, we have this picture of the Niger State Governor Abubakar Sani Bello, the State Commissioner of Health Dr. Mohammed, and members of the NCDC inspecting health facility in Mina. This happened yesterday. And beside the picture, President Muhammadu Buhari condemns killing of 47 by bandits in Katsina. Story starts from the front page and it continues on page 4. The bottom strip stories. Rivers government releases arrested 22 ExxonMobil. Take that story again. Rivers government releases arrested 22 ExxonMobil workers. The story can be found on page 11. And on page 25, 68-year-old woman delivered of twins in Lagos. And the last story on the Leadership newspaper. COVID-19, panic in Maiduguri over alleged death of nurse. The story can be found on page 29. Alright, we'll pause here to go for a short break. When we return, newspaper headlines continues. Please stay tuned.
Not that I mean to undermine polytechnics, they do a good job, but university education is actually more valuable.
What the child is supposed to do is to identify those people that are very, very slow in learning.
When you discover your child is not performing well in a particular subject, it's for you to encourage the child and find out ways to assist the child.
I don't give respect to the school in which you graduated from. What I see in you and I respect is what you can offer. And this is what polytechnic education equipped the graduate with.
There's no longer white-collar jobs. They are nowhere to be found. The population is increasing on a daily basis and the government cannot provide all the needed jobs for the boarding youths.
It's the doctor that the patient has to get a prescription for. The reason is that when the patient comes, the patient gets a card and is directed to see the physician.
Nice to know that you're still there. Let's get straight to the rest papers. And I'll continue with the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. We'll take it from the lead story. Abakari, why officials at Beria can't enter Aso Rock now. How to handle COVID-19 curbs. This is coming from NCDC. The carry not known by associates. The story can be found on pages 3 and 4. And beside the picture, bandits kill 47 in Katsina. See details on page 29. On page 27, troops neutralize scores of Boko Haram and ISWAP terrorists in Yobe. Gunmen kill civil defense officer in Benue. See the story on page 29. Lead delivers 68-year-old woman of twins. As the picture of the 68-year-old woman, her husband and their twins at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital. And the story starts from the front page and it continues on page 2. COVID-19. World Health Organization official test positive in Bauchi. Lagos discharges 4, Oyo 2. Katsina on lockdown, curfew in Edo. Lagos mainland, Etiosa. Ikeja top local governments with highest cases. This is coming from Health Commissioner. The story can be found on page 6. Then above the masthead, scientists probing if sunlight destroys coronavirus. The story starts from the front page and it continues on page 2. The last story on Nigerian Tribune. Wike frees 22 ExxonMobil workers arrested over lockdown violation. That story can be found on page 25. We'll go to the last paper for the headlines this morning, Business Day newspaper, and I'll take it from the top. Searching for Nigeria's next chief of staff. Front page comments. The story starts from the front page and it continues on page 28. An inside story, how Nigeria fund managers are investing in response to COVID-19. See details on page 2. Nigeria's Bonny Light is struggling to find buyers in global markets. That same page 2. Lagos decentralizes COVID-19 testing as death toll hits 14. See details on page 2. And the picture is that of Femi Gbajabiamila, Speaker, House of Representatives, and others during a power sector stakeholders meeting on the 2-month free power supply to Nigerians conveyed by the Speaker at the National Assembly in Abuja. Alright, the last story on Business Day newspaper. Here's what Abakare's death means for Nigerian economy. See story on page 28. With our story, we come to the end of today's newspaper headlines. Thank you for sharing your time with us. Join us again on Wednesday for the midweek edition. Please note this: coronavirus is real, so always remember to take the necessary precautionary measures. Ensure you wash your hand with soap and water for at least 20 seconds and apply alcohol-based sanitizer. Stay home and stay safe. Bye and God bless.
Introducing a new way to watch ACNN 24 hours on your mobile device. Download the VM Africa app for Android from Google Play Store.